All right, I think I might be live now, or maybe just cut in there. But anyway, hi everyone. I'm Steven of Yesshift, and this is News Desk edition. And one of the things I'll be talking about on this broadcast is the new Downes Braide Association album, Celestial Songs. And this is, I don't know if you can hear it, but one of the songs, Clear Light. So just a little bit of that. And yeah, I'll be reviewing that for a good portion of this show. And then afterward, I will also be talking about some other news related items. So yeah, I figured it's a nice way to celebrate Jeff Downes' birthday, keyboardist of Yes, Asia, and Downes Braide Association. I remember a couple of years ago, me and my dad were. My dad is not on this episode due to scheduling, but we talked about it and figured I'd go live and do this. But I remember a couple of years ago when we celebrated Jeff Downes' birthday. Then we were sort of going through his catalog, and Downes Braide Association, I was really unfamiliar with it at that time, but I was really taken with the material. There have been five studio albums so far, and I believe one live album. The first couple albums, Pictures of You and Suburban Ghosts, are a bit more poppy, and then from Skyscraper Souls onward, so that Halcyon Hymns and this new one, Celestial Songs, it got more proggy, which is fitting that they got Roger Dean to do the artwork for those particular albums. So it really works out in that sense. But overall, I think the catalog maintains this feeling of it explores the music explores like thinking about the past and the changes over life, and sometimes there's a longing, and there's some existential themes, and I think Celestial Songs really fits well in that sort of thing. We got sent this advanced download, so many thanks for that. And now we're able to review it ahead of its release date. It comes out September 8th. You can look for it on Cherry Red Records. But yeah, let me open up my notes so that I can. Yeah. So we, of course, have Jeff Downes on keys and Chris Braid, wonderful singer. Andy Hodge on bass, Dave Bainbridge on guitar and some keys, Ash Sohn on drums, and all of these tracks were written by Chris Braid and Jeff Downes, except Keep on Moving, which is credited to Braid, Francis Dunnery, and Downes, and Goodbye to You, Sister Shame, which is credited to Chris Braid, Andy Partridge, and Jeff Downes. Let me just double check that. Let me know how this sounds, because well, I guess I could open this right now. You might hear a little echo real quick. Okay, yeah, it's looking good. Okay, so feel free to chime in, and feel free to share this around. That might make things easier for me because I'm mainly going to be focusing on looking through my notes so that I can convey my thoughts on all of these songs. So this consists of 11 tracks. First one is Look What You Do, and it begins with narration. A few of these songs begin with narration. It's sort of a trend that started on a previous album. And on Look What You Do, has some keys that feel very moody and atmospheric for the intro, and then the guitar feels like it conveys a longing, and you get lyrics like "Look what you do to my head, to my heart." So I really think it sets the tone for what you're gonna get with this sort of thing. And then the second track, that one was 6 minutes 16 seconds. The second track, Clear Light, is 5 minutes long. We got the lyric video on YouTube earlier in the summer, So people are familiar with that by now. And it begins with a bombastic intro that to me feels very reminiscent of Asia, which, I mean, kind of makes sense. You know, Jeff Downes is in Asia, so some of that would trickle in. But that's not to say that Downes Braide Association isn't its own thing. You know, it very much feels like its own thing. I remember a couple years ago, I think my dad said something to the effect that it offers an opportunity for Jeff Downes to do what he wouldn't do for Yes or Asia. I vaguely remember him saying that. So on Clear Light, the way that Braid sings here is very impressive and really sticks to my mind. And then you get bird chirping at the end and segues into the next song very nicely. Keep on moving. There was a music video for this one as well that included some what looks like home video footage. I think there was even a Chewbacca mask in there, which is kind of surprising. I mean, Star Wars to me, like thinking about some of the older stuff, does get me really nostalgic. So Francis Dunnery plays guitar here, and it's very much been described as a love letter to the past, and I think it really excels at that. You know, it feels like it takes you back in time, and it's very nostalgic. Uh, there's the lyrics, "One day I'll go back and see that place, say hello to long forgotten days," and that really stuck with me because I remember a few months ago I revisited a place I hadn't been to in a while, and for a while I missed the place, but coming back it felt kind of different. But it was like sort of, I don't know, it was like the meeting of two different eras together in a way. So yeah, the lyrics throughout this are good. Um, and of course, Dave Bainbridge does guitar for the rest of the album, but there's a keyboard bit that has twists and turns. Feels comparable to Invention of Knowledge to my ears, so it's really cool. And it ends with a very nice, sincere sentiment. I hope you're happy and your dreams came true. And sometimes we meet people and then we have to go separate ways and we don't hear from them for a while, and it makes you wonder like what happened to them, and you really like hope for the best, especially if they meant a lot to you, you know, that person, whether it be a friend or maybe you know, there's stuff here that could pertain to relatives, and it's a really sweet song. Then we get Darker Side of Fame. So Keep On Moving was 6 minutes 36 seconds. This one is 3 minutes 56. And you got Mark Almond guesting here as an additional singer singing against Chris Braid. I'm mainly familiar with the thing that comes to my head like right away when I hear Mark Almond's name is the song Snake Charmer, which appeared on the soundtrack to the show Hannibal for season 3, or the first part of season 3. So it was nice hearing his voice here again, like a little familiar voice. And, you know, he and Chris do such a great job here. And this song really touches on how, you know, we think of music and, you know, entertainment in general for that matter. And, you know, it's supposed to entertain and really make us feel good, but there's also an egocentric, narcissistic side of those industries. So going into that industry can be really eye-opening in some ways, good or bad, but some try to get through it, you know. Again, it's another really thought-provoking song, Darker Side of Fame. Then we get Hey Kid. The mood feels. This is 3 minutes 28 seconds. The mood feels downbeat for this one, as there are details of fighting for something, and really can make one ask whether it's worth it to go to war over these things. And there are these sentiments like people being compared to, or I suppose being expected to be heroes like the ones we see in movies like Charlton Heston and John Wayne, be like that and fight these battles. And but the song makes it clear that it's like, you kind of have to second guess these things. It's a bit more complicated than that. And then we get Will to Power. This one, a couple of these songs apparently were in a long gestation or period. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. I believe Clearlight originated in 2015, so it was in the works for a while. And this one is from the Skyscraper Souls era, so the third DBA album. I think that was about 6 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But this has kind of a retro feel to me, kind of like something that you might hear in the Rocky Four soundtrack to my ears, and that's Rocky Four is actually probably my favorite of the Rocky sequels. Um, as cheesy as some moments of it might be, within the original series anyway. But hey, this one's essentially about how people might mess up at times, but it can be okay. And the words "I'm running" pop up here and there. Kind of reminded me of the Yes song "I'm Running." But anyway, there's this whole sentiment that even in the darkest hour, there can be a light. So again, throughout this album, we are told that, being reminded of some of the dark things that can happen, but also there can be light that comes eventually. There's an impressive rhythmic instrumentation at the end of this one, Will to Power. So it's a great way to round out that 6 minutes, 23 seconds. Then we get Heart Shaped Hole, which is 9 minutes and 6 seconds. There's this part that really spoke to me about how it can be lonely after a show. And, it can really be any type of show, a concert, a comedy show. Sometimes, and I've felt this before, like being lonely around a group of people. So this very much touches on that and it feels very existential, and it's a really good song. Then the next one, Dear Petra, 3 minutes 56 seconds. Now this one, when I listened to it, I recognized the music right away because this was actually released a couple years ago with a different name in the title. Back then, it was made in reaction to something that I think Chris Braide had seen on the news regarding a very specific child abuse case. And then eventually, with all the stuff that was going on in Ukraine, he decided that it needs to be reworked and kind of made a bit more broad, a bit more, I guess maybe a bit more universal, you could say. So I'm glad it has resurfaced, and it really makes you think about, terrible things happen in the world, whether that be, just terrible things happening to a child within a family, or because of wars and all these conflicts. And it's like, none of this needs to happen. Like, children should not be caught in the crossfire of any of this. It's so, like, it's really sad to think about. And you really want the children to be safe and to be protected even after they're gone. So uh, the the piano on this really, the keys on this really convey that sorrowful mood of, that type of thing. So yeah, that's Dear Petra. Then we get a bit more of it, like a much more upbeat one, On the Run, 5 minutes 9 seconds. This one I actually think is very catchy and is apparently Talk Talk influenced. But it's this whole thing about driving out demons. And no, this is not the Pink Floyd song On the Run, but it's still very enjoyable and really, like, again, it sticks in your head like when you listen to it. Then we get Goodbye to You, Sister Shame, 7 minutes and 30 seconds. And this whole thing about refusing to feel bad, to feel guilty about, being judged by others, that resonated with me. And of course, it depends on the circumstances, but I really dug it. And in one of the interview clips, I think this was described as being very Paul McCartney esque, and I can definitely hear that. Like, it definitely feels a bit like Paul McCartney or even Beatles. So, yeah, I can definitely see that. Then we get the closing song, Beyond the Stars, 10 minutes and 19 seconds. So as I listened to this, this was before I saw like how much time was in it. It felt like it would be one of those short epilogue type songs. But then it just kept going and revealed itself to be a longer track that was a little more than 10 minutes long. So I was very impressed by that. It was very beautiful. There's this whole thing about, time marches on and we're passing through. And it kind of feels like the Yes song on Mirror to the Sky, Circles of Time. It has that similar existential feel of like the passage of time. And so you could see those as sister songs, just as you can see the album cover for this as like a sister to the Mirror to the Sky album cover being made by Roger Dean and all, and showing the stars and whatnot. I have a quote here of regarding the song. I think this was from Chris Braide in one of the press releases that went out. What happens to love when we die? Beyond the Stars was a tune that began in 2015 and really shaped the way the artwork was to develop. Something bigger than us, something astral and heavenly. It grew from a 3-minute ditty to an 11-minute epic. That's what the song Beyond the Stars is really asking. Celestial Songs was a title we came up with in 2020, and Roger Dean made it manifest in his wonderful sleeve painting. A beautiful, heavenly rainbow sky full of stars. And we've talked about the painting on occasion. Roger. Sorry about that. Roger did live painting sessions where people could see him working on this exact painting for Celestial Songs. And it's such a beautiful one. It's great to see it in person. Like my dad and I saw at the exhibit of his as daughter Freya's art, The Secret Path, last year. And also, shout out, Roger Dean's birthday is also coming up on the 31st. So there you go. And yeah, Roger Dean, he definitely puts in all that he can for these sort of things. And it's a really magnificent piece of art that really conveys the title and the themes, especially of this song, Beyond the Stars. I'm just seeing if I can pull it up on my phone, the artwork, and maybe show it to the webcam. Let's see. Celestial Songs, art. And I mean, y'all can look this up as well, but I just figured I'd try this. Let's see. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. Yeah. All right, let me see if there are any comments. Yeah, but it looks like people are watching at least. But yeah, so all that is to say, Celestial Songs, I really enjoyed it. It's a great listen. Even if you're not familiar with DBA, it's like you can listen to it and it can be your entryway, and it might show you like what they can do. They try to explore whatever they can on each of these albums, and this one is one that I think was delayed a couple of times because of some supply chain issues, like availability and whatnot. So I'm glad it's finally out, or it's coming out September 8th. Like I said, we were sent the advanced download to review, so really glad that I was able to give this a listen. And Yeah, so definitely order that, listen to it. Uh, it's it definitely resonates deeply. Like it can get one like really emotional. This album. So that's another great effort by this duo, and I'm very curious to see what else they can put out in the future. Like if they make a DBA 6, I wonder what that's gonna be like. All right, so let's see. What else do we have on the docket? Since it's, of course, Jeff Downes' birthday, I figured I'd also listen to this album and sort of give my 2 cents on it. So this is also available from Cherry Red Records. The Cold Blooded Hearts album, The Cold Light of Day. So this is a band that are fronted by QPR's, Queen Park Rangers former player and current manager Gareth Ainsworth, formerly of Wimbledon and Wycombe Wanderers, along with guitarist and songwriter Lee Van Sargent, drummer Luke Chalky Sargent, and bass guitarist Ron Campbell. So this is This is an album that feels very classic rock. Like it in a way, it feels like it's not too like, how do I explain this? So the songs on this album are very much rock songs, but they feel like they could be radio friendly. But that's not to say that, I feel like the term radio friendly kind of has a negative connotation to it sometimes. But I feel like these tracks could easily be played on the radio and they would fit very well. There are lots of great rock songs on the radio. Worth Waiting kind of reminded me of the Stones, and Broken Sky remind me of Pink Floyd a little bit. I'll just read off the track list real quick. So we got High, Love's Lost, Hollow, Eastern Sunrise, Worth Waiting, Cold Road, Tell Me, She Ain't in Love with Me, Gray, Broken Sky, and bonus track Conspiracy of Silence. And Jeff Downes was a producer on this. He was very involved. Uh, I think this was kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but these are very great sounding rock songs, so it's definitely worth a listen. All right, then we also got Abbey Road Reimagined. Now, this is another one of those tribute albums from Cleopatra Records. And, obviously it's a Beatles one, Abbey Road, the album. That's where the idea for that title came from. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the track list so I can look at the guests who are on here. But yeah, it was really cool listening to this. You can listen to this on Bandcamp. Uh, the guests who appear, they play the Beatles songs very well and also sort of add their own stamp on it. We got Durga McBroom, for example, is on Come Again, or Come Together. Come Again, what am I saying? Arthur Brown, his take on I Want You, She's So Heavy. Um, Arthur Brown and Steve Stevens are on that, but, it really brings out, Arthur Brown has this persona where it's like the mad world of Arthur Brown. I thought he was an interesting character when I saw him perform on the Royal Affair tour a few years ago. That's where this shirt is from. And he really does put his stamp on that, convey his personality through that. We also got Bumblefoot on Here Comes the Sun. Patrick Moraz, along with Rebecca Pigeon, is on Because. I think, Rick Wakeman was on You Never Give Me Your Money, and Jeff Downes was on Sun King. What I find interesting about the keyboardists here is that for these songs, if you think really hard about it, you could probably discern their style, but I feel like it's not overt, and it feels like they really blend in with the feel of these Beatles songs, so that you're not really thinking too hard about, oh, this is their reinterpretation of the songs. To me, it feels a bit more subdued in a way. I'm curious to see if anyone else thinks the same. But yeah, this contains 17 tracks come together. Something, Maxwell's Silver Hammer, Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden, I Want You, Here Comes the Sun, Because, You Never Give Me Your Money, Sun King, Mean Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, Golden Slumber, Carry That Weight, The End, and Her Majesty. So yeah, listen to that on Bandcamp, see whether it's for you, and just go from there. Another thing that's coming from uh, Cleopatra Records is a Speedway on Saturn's Rings by the Fusion Syndicate, or I think it's just Fusion Syndicate, or maybe there's a the. Well, in any case, it's fronted by Fernando Perdomo, and he's done really great takes on Yes stuff. If you think back to the Alan White tribute concert last year, he played guitar on some of the Yes songs there, did a really good job. I'm just pulling up the page about this. So this, yeah. So this contains four of the tracks on here are from the previous the Fusion Syndicate used to be the name of an album from 2012, or so Billy Sherwood was very much part of that, very instrumental in that. And so this new release, Speedway and Saturn's Rings, includes four tracks that I suppose were on that original album. So those would be Random Acts of Science, which includes Rick Wakeman and Billy Sherwood, Stone Cold Infusion, Molecular Breakdown, and Particle Accelerations, all of which include Billy Sherwood. But this also includes Rick Wakeman on a song called I.O. And this song came out, I was able to listen to it in an article that came out. I think it was a YouTube link. And, the keyboards feel kind of like a throwback, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it sounded really good. So, yeah, the track list for this is a Speedway on Saturn's Rings, Planet 15, I.O., Escape from the Black Hole, The Bottle, Blasting Off, Lunar Rover on Mars, Coming Back Home, and then the four previously released tracks I mentioned, which, according to what I'm looking at, are on the CD only release. So yeah, people can look into that. It's being released on September 1st on Bandcamp, and then September 15th is a more general release. So I'm very curious to listen to that. And I think it was also recently Fernando Perdomo's birthday. So yeah, shout out to him about that as well. While we're on the topic of Rick Wakeman, I'm gonna read these posts that he made on X, the site formerly known as Twitter. So on August 13th, Rick Wakeman said, I'm going to a playback of two very special albums today that hopefully will be available later this year, along with two others. So all in all, a 4-album set which may sell separately as well. Can't say any more at the moment, except that my great friend Roger Dean is doing the cover. And then later he wrote, I've just got back after listening to the playback and I have a huge smile on my face. Far exceeded my expectations, which were high. So yeah, that sounds like very exciting stuff there, especially with Roger Dean's involvement. When it comes to Roger Dean, he really adds another layer to the experience of getting a new album and opening it, looking at it, and it can even color one's perception of the album, having the artwork in mind. So really cool that that's going on. Very curious to see what comes of all this. And just yesterday, over on Rick Wakeman's website, there was this announcement that he's involved in this charity called Saving Strays, which is happening around Christmas time. So I'm just reading the bit that's written here. Join Rick, Peter Egan, and a host of guests to celebrate Christmas at two beautiful venues. All proceeds going to UK charity Saving Strays. So the first of these shows is at the Guildford Cathedral on November 24th at 6:30 p.m. in that time zone, and the St. Mary Le Tower in Ipswich show is on December 23rd, also at 6:30 p.m. Also the poster for this says performances by Rick Wakeman, Peter Egan, Triple Cream, Mim Gray, a touch of musicality choir, introducing Nicola Olson. So that's for the November 24th show. And I'm looking at the December 23rd one, seeing if anything's different. Let's see. Okay, so for the choir there, it says special guests from the choir of St. Mary Le Tower. And then everything else is pretty much the same. So yeah, that's a nice little thing that's going on. And speaking of Wakemans, Oliver Wakeman actually very recently posted having a fun evening trying to work out how to play the keyboard solos from To the Moment for the festival show in October. More complicated than I remembered. So To the Moment, in case anyone needs a reminder, is the first track on From a Page, the re-release that included the Yes lineup that featured Oliver Wakeman and Benoit David, along with Housequire and White. Really great stuff, that album. I always sing its praises, and I'm very excited that some of that is going to be played at I think it's called the Autumn's End Festival over in October, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure we'll talk more about what we hear of that. Try to have Oliver on to maybe do a recap. So another thing to bring up is that today is the birthday of Joe Cass, the drummer of Total Mass Retain. And just over this past weekend, there was actually a show that they streamed via Stage It. And this took place at the Kenneth Flash, I believe it's called. And the set list was Firebird Suite, Siberian Catru, I've Seen All Good People, South Side of the Sky, which then segued into the end of Ritual, Nous Sommes du Soleil. So that was very beautiful. Then we got America, and then Steve Howe guitar solo medley done by Johnny Bruns very excellently. If that included Leaves of Green, Mood for a Day, and then going into Onward, so it includes the Unity section at the beginning that we hear on Keys to Ascension. Very beautiful. Then Heart of the Sunrise, And You and I, The Meeting, Yours Is No Disgrace, which then goes into the second half of Gates of Delirium. It starts with the do 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 do. I think it started from there, and then the latter part of that instrumental section that then goes into Soon. So that was a really cool way to divide that up. Then Starship Trooper, always a great way to end the show. Yeah, that's a really good set list. You got the classics, but you also got reinvention of, how do we divide up certain things and try to merge them with a couple other things. Total Mass Retain also contributed to Miguel Bass's Play for Chris 9, which was posted on YouTube earlier this month. So I gave that a watch. Their contribution was the clip of Hold Out Your Hand from the Chris Squire birthday show back in March. We recently, I think about a month ago, had Joe Cass on our show, with me and my dad, and we talked about that Chris Squire birthday show and how that playlist is now on Total Mass Retain's YouTube channel. So it's really cool that they were able to throw that in the video montage. The Play for Chris 9 video had people playing, they played some of the classics, but there were also some surprises. One of them being Face to Face, performed by Stephen Sullivan of Forgotten Yesterdays. The page that's the great resource of all the Yes gigs over the years. And another surprise was Shock to the System, because even though Chris doesn't play bass on the album version, um, maybe his vocals were included on there. I'm not really sure at the moment, but what's funny is when I think of that song, I think of the live version from the Denver show on the Union Tour, which was included toward the end of the Yes Years documentary, which I grew up on. Like, I do think of Chris when I think of that song and how, he seems really happy and smiling and playing against Trevor Rabin. They're face to face and look like they're having fun. So I thought that was an interesting addition, and the video for it has some interesting editing going on. So yeah, people, if you haven't checked that out yet, watch Play for Chris 9 over on YouTube on Miguel Bass's YouTube channel. Let me see if there are any comments. Um, let's see. Yeah, you might have heard me a bit right there. I'm not sure. But I think we just have a couple more things, and then this broadcast will be finished. Okay. So another bit of news that came out, I think 2 days ago, was this post about Yessingles. So I'm just pulling up the post about this, but this is a 12-track collection of some of Yes's single releases. So I'm just going to read the description real quick, or try to zoom through it. Single versions of the legendary band's 12 biggest hits making final debut on October 6th. Now, just as an aside, I'm not really sure what the what's it called? The criteria here is for biggest hits. Like, I kind of wonder how they measured that for these. But anyway, there's a special splatter vinyl version available the same day, October 6th, at select retailers. And so people can pre-order. And the radio edit of And You and I, Part 1, is available digitally. So Yessingles will be on 140-gram black vinyl and a special splatter vinyl version at local retailers for $24.98. That's US currency. The promo radio edit version of And You and I already said that. This version has never been available digitally until now. The collection boasts new artwork created exclusively for the album and features 12 songs that have resonated with generations of devoted fans. Yessingles moves chronologically through the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers career, starting in 1971 with the group's first top 40 hit Your Move, and ending in 1984 with its smash Leave It. In between, Yessingles touches on the band's different eras, ranging from intricate prog rock tapestries like Starship Trooper and America to the unforgettable soundscape of its chart-topping sensation Owner of a Lonely Heart. With the discography spanning over 5 decades, Yes's influence on rock remains immeasurable, and Yessingles reaffirms the band's status as the most enduring, ambitious, and virtuosic progressive band in history. So on side 1 of this, you have the single versions of Your Move, Starship Trooper, Life Seeker, Roundabout, America, And You and I, Soon. And then on side 2, you have the single edits of Sound Chaser, Wondrous Stories, Don't Kill the Whale, Into the Lens, Owner of a Lonely Heart, and the single remix of Leave It. So yeah, I shared this post, and I thought the reaction was interesting, maybe a little bit surprising, but maybe not so surprising. The artwork itself has been kind of a point of discussion. It feels kind of minimalist. It's not Roger Dean, and of course everyone prefers Roger Dean when it comes to Yes artwork. So some people have their opinions on the artwork. The way I was kind of looking at it was, it feels like, it's this gray and with yellow lines and yellow rectangles and such, or some gray rectangles as well. I felt like, whether intentional or not, it feels like it echoes the art style of 90125 in a way. That era. So since this ends with that era, I felt like this type of cover is kind of fitting. But I can also see the flip side of the coin where, if someone's going into a record store or music store or whatever, it might not be the most eye-catching album cover as a Roger Dean cover would be. If it's in the Yes section, that would help at least, but it's sure to make people pause and be like, wait, what? What's this? Like, I don't think it's a bad album cover. Like I said, I feel like it fits the 90125 era, whether it's trying to do that or not. But I do understand why people are kind of surprised. And I think the track list might also be something that people may debate. There are also people wondering, like, why this release? Why Yessingles? To me personally, for maybe 15 years or so, I've kind of wondered why there's never been a release like this. The title Yessingles sounds like a no-brainer. Like, a collection that would include, and, this was way back in the day when I was, like, I guess, daydreaming and not thinking quite practically. Imagine, if you will, a collection that has every Yes single, every single edit, and maybe even the B-sides that appeared on those singles and not the albums. But there'd be so many of those, even if it's just the Atlantic era, that something like this, where it's just two sides, wouldn't fit all of that. You'd be talking about, like, multiple volumes, or maybe a huge box set type of release. But then something like that, even though I feel like ideally something titled Yes Singles should include everything, I don't think that's very realistic, because it's not guaranteed that people would buy multiple volumes or bigger box sets. So I think narrowing it down to these 12 songs is a safer choice. And yeah, I know that the single versions of all these tracks, they're not gonna compare against the full longer versions of any of these. Well, except maybe Soon. Soon kind of stands on its own pretty well. But I do remember liking the Leave It single remix. I think that was a bonus track on 90125 when it got re-released almost 12 years ago. Another argument I've seen is that people already have these single versions as part of, bonus tracks on the albums or on some other box sets or compilations or whatever. But I can see how it would be more convenient to put some of these on one release. But again, like, in my own daydreaming impractical head, I would want everything to be listed, and maybe it would be a long playlist or something. But yeah, I feel like something like this is for a very niche audience. Maybe collectors of vinyl who want all these different Yes vinyl releases, or maybe for the niche fan who wants, something that I feel like there's kind of a novelty to this. Like, it's definitely a niche thing. For me personally, I don't think it's targeted toward me. But I'm curious to hear, like, from anyone, like, who buys this, like, what are their thoughts on it, like, after they get it? Like, what do they think of the packaging, the experience of listening to all of these, side one and side two? Like, I'd be very curious to hear. So yeah, I talked about that a bit longer than I thought I would, to be honest. Something that kind of came out of nowhere and was kind of a surprised, and now everyone's talking about it. But yeah, to close things out, just want to show something that I recently acquired. I might need to get up and reach over to grab it. So just give me a second. Oops. Let's see. All right, I'm still here, just getting the books. Right. Let me just open that tab. All right, so these books from Weimar Publishing, we'd heard that they were going out of print. Oh, I see a comment from Tony Brown. I would have guessed Tempest Fugit would have been on this album. Yeah, that was released as a single, right? I think it was. But yeah, very lots of different song choices. I'm sure people will debate about. But anyway, these books from Weimar Publishing, which are apparently now out of print, so I snagged them. I got copies for me and copies for my dad. Yes, a Visual Biography by Martin Popov. So this is volume 1, 1968 to 1981. Or maybe it looks better in the frame if it's like that. And volume 2, 1982 to 2022. So that's a much larger gap right there. But yeah, I appreciate the inclusion of all the different eras up to that point. I've not had time to read through these completely yet, but skimming through these, like the layout, with all the pictures, and includes quotes from the members. So from different sources, I believe, or maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look at the sources for these, but yeah, you also got like these. Oh, this is a nice little thing toward the end of it. The first one. And I like how the covers for these try to be diverse with the different lineups that are shown. Yeah, I'm just showing this to the webcam. Like yeah, I mean, look at volume 2. Like on the cover of that alone, you've got 3 different singers. John Anderson, John Davison, Benoit David. So I'm very excited to get into these when I make time for that. And of course, Dad's going to need to look through them too. But yeah, I'm glad I snagged these before they were gone. And there was something I was thinking about for a while, and then like other stuff came up. But hearing that they were going out of print, I was like, okay, we need to get these. So, yeah, there you go. But yeah, that's it for this news episode. Thank you all for joining me. And again, happy birthday to Jeff Downes, Joe Cass, belated to Fernando Perdomo, and Roger Deans is coming up as well. And yeah, like I said, check out Celestial Songs and all the other stuff that I've mentioned, reviewed and whatnot. And yeah, so keep an eye out. Follow facebook.com/Yesshift, and we'll post about the next time we're putting something out. You can also follow us on youtube.com/@Yesshift. And you can also find the audio on various podcast apps. Like if you just search Yesshift, you'll probably find us. And you can email yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com with feedback and ideas. We do listen and we try to do what we can. So yeah, that's it for now. And I'm trying to think of like a nice sign off for this. Yeah, so keep on keeping on in Yes Land, and keep an eye out for the next Yes Shift.